Because of Thanksgiving, Laura and I will both be traveling this week. We'll still be both available by email and phone, I think. I know I will. Laura said she's going to try her best to respond to messages. So if you have a hard time getting hold of us over the next couple days, that's why. We are both posting grades as they come in. Most of my section should have the grades up by now. Laura said she's going to try to get everything up by Friday. That being said, obviously I'm assuming that most of you are not going to be checking grades tomorrow during Thanksgiving, but if you have any questions, just let us know. Yeah, sorry for the inconvenience, but yeah, holidays. So, let's talk about assignment 7. So generally speaking, I thought these were pretty good. Um, so let's start with what I really liked about them. So a lot of you guys have noticed, and I commented on this when I saw it, have gotten really, really good at incorporating the research and incorporating the reading pretty seamlessly into your assignments, so that you that it's not just like here's a block quote devoid of context, but rather that you're making the assertion that you're trying to establish, and then backing it up with a quote from the relevant reading, or from a study, or from whatever. And I thought that was really, really good. I've been very impressed by a lot of your responses. Now, I think that the most common problem that I noticed in this assignment was that it didn't really answer the question. So the question is, as I mentioned in my video last week, the question is a paradox, right? It's this thing that seems to be a contradiction. So the question is, how can it be that there's these that white males, women, and minorities are getting different sentences. So there has to be some kind of explanation for that. Sorry. All right. So, what's the explanation for these different sentences? Is it just judicial bias? That's an option, right? It's an option to say it is just judicial bias. Of course, that's a tricky thing to prove, because at this point in history, while of course there probably are judges out there who have racial biases or who have gender prejudices, they're usually not that obvious about it, right? They're pretty good at hiding it. So proving judicial bias is really, really tricky. So a lot of people have tried to study these things, and that's what the research was about, of trying to look at what factors might explain different sentences. It's not enough just to say, oh, look, whites get different sentences than minorities, or men get different sentences than women, therefore judicial bias, right? Because there might be another variable that explains it. So many of you mentioned things like past criminal history. And past criminal history is a great example of one of those third variables, besides just judicial bias and race, or judicial bias and gender. That the third thing might be, oh, that maybe it is that men are much more likely to commit crimes than women. Therefore, men, and that's just statistically true, so then therefore that men are much more likely to have a past criminal record than women. So therefore, men, on average, are more likely to get harsher sentences. So that would be an explanation that is not just gender, right? But there's something else going on. Likewise, with something like violent crime, men are much more likely to commit violent crimes than women. Therefore, men are much more likely to get harsher sentences than women. So those are just examples of some of the things that you guys mentioned, right? Prior criminal history, seriousness of the offense. Many of you mentioned bail, and that. So some of you mentioned, that if you plead guilty, that you'll often get a less harsh sentence than if you plead not guilty and are found guilty at trial. That might be true, but that doesn't explain why we perceive and observe differences in sentences between men, women, and whites and minorities. Then what many of you did, which was exactly the right thing, is you got into public defenders are much more likely, at least according to some studies, to seek plea bargains for certain groups rather than others. And so that combined with information about types of sentencing that people get, or likewise, public defenders are more likely to seek pleas, whereas private attorneys might be more likely to fight it. And you have to explain that out fully, but that gets at also this issue of how come why you might be able to observe differential sentencing. So that being said, that was kind of beyond the scope of this assignment to really tease out that level of detail, but we're looking for the kind of big things of can you observe, or can you take from the reading the kind of major theories as to why you might get differential sentencing, besides just, oh, the judge is a racist, or the judge is bigoted against men, or bigoted against women, or whatever. So that was assignment 7. As far as assignment 8 is concerned, so kind of previewing that, assignment 8 is asking for 3 things, right? So there'll be 3 things that we'll be looking for in the next assignment in your responses. First, assignment 8 asks for you to propose a reform. Now, Professor Jeslow, very specifically in the assignment, asks that you take that one of those reforms from one of the readings. So if you want to propose your own reform, which is something that you thought of, that's fine, but you need to clear it with me and Laura first, or whoever your TA is, right? So if you send us an email saying, hey, is this okay? And as long as there's something out there that has research behind it, then we'll probably say yes. So I guess a quick tip would be, if you want to pursue some other reform besides one of the ones mentioned in the reading, that's fine. Just send us kind of a sentence or two describing it, and if you can find an article that's talked about it, or a place where it's been tried, or a study or something, so to show that it's not just something you came up with off the top of your head, but it's something that some people have done research on, then we'll probably say yes, and that'll probably be fine. Okay, so the first thing again is propose a reform. Now the second thing is you got to give us the reasons why this reform would be a good idea. So this is why you really want to look at the reading that's been assigned, or if you're going to come up with your own, to look if there's been studies done about it, because you can't just say we should do this, right? You have to be able to give us a reason why. And if it's something that's been written a lot about, and a lot of people have discussed it, that section's going to be much easier for you to write. Then the third part is you have to kind of, again, foresee problems that might emerge. So think about what difficulties might emerge in proposing this reform, in implementing this reform. So you're not going to get full credit if you don't have all 3 of those details. So you need to have propose a reform, this is why, and these are the problems that we foresee. Okay, so last thing, I know this video is running a little bit long, but last thing is, most of you all at this point have gotten very good at citations. I'm just having a brief parenthetical and then your works cited at the end, but many of you are still not citing, or if you are, it'll just say lecture. And that's not enough. You have to have a full citation as to where you're getting your information, and you're definitely not going to get full credit if you don't have any kind of indication of where your ideas are coming from. Because I'm assuming that most of you are not just coming up with these things off the top of your head, but you're actually doing the research behind them. And if you are, then you have to show what research you're doing and where you're getting your ideas. Okay, so that's it. I hope that everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. And if you're traveling, stay safe. Felix and I will be traveling to New York, so wish us luck. Yeah, all right. Have a good weekend, and I look forward to reading assignment 8. Bye.